day, Africa, and welcome to AAU Talks here on AAU TV. And my name is Kwesi Sam. Today on AAU Talks, we have good news for African higher education. And I have the country director for Nationwide Equipment Plus Finance, who is going to share with us the good news that we have for African higher education, most especially in times where African universities are struggling. Governments are reducing the main source of funding to African higher education. Nationwide Equipment Plus Finance has good news for us, and that is alternative means of funding higher education in Africa. You can join the conversation via our social media platforms, Association of African Universities on Facebook, and AAU_67 on Twitter. I'll go for a short break, and when I return, I will introduce my guest. Stay tuned. This is AAU TV. Welcome from the short break. This is AAU Talks here on AAU TV. And like I said before I went for the short break, we are discussing alternative source of funding for African higher education, most especially in times where it is difficult for universities to complete their project. It is difficult for universities to seek funding to support their mandate or to make sure that they're able to execute their mandate that has been given to them. I have in the studio the country director, and then he is also the West African rep for Nationwide Equipment Plus Finance, and he is in the person of Mr. Stephen Zelevu. And he is also a banker, he is a teacher, and so he has in-depth knowledge in what we are going to discuss today. You are welcome, Mr. Zelevu.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
I'm very, very good.
Great. We are happy to have you in our studios today because of the subject that we are discussing. And I call it good news because I find it as good news for African higher education, sure, most especially in seasons and terrain where institutions are struggling with their means of or source of funding. Mm-hmm. When you go to most of our African institutions, that is institution of higher learning, you will find uncompleted projects. You would find that there are institutions that need a lot of equipment and they need a lot of stationery or other things to make sure that they are able to execute their mandate. What good news do you have for us?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sam.
Great.
Basically, with Nationwide Finance and Equipment, our core mandate is equipment supply. But we realize in Africa that most of the clients that we meet, after they struggle to go through to get loans from banks with high interest rate, when the goods even get to the port, money to clear becomes a problem. So
yes, exactly.
And then also having some form of working capital to start up their project becomes a problem. So we talked to our finance group in the US that actually agreed to add a finance component to it. So we call it Equipment Plus Finance. You buy equipment from us, we give you cash in addition. And which most companies around the world don't do such things. Yeah.
So how does higher education come in? What package do you have for higher education in Africa?
Yeah, with higher education in Africa, I think what we can do for them is we need to look at what kind of projects that they have in mind. And then how we can come in to support them through equipment supply. It could be construction equipment or lab, or we could furnish their hospitals for them in that order. So we normally need to know what kind of need
the university has.
Then we come into that.
Okay.
And then we can also add a cash component to it, because we know now liquidity these days is hard to come by.
Exactly.
Based on the kind of interest the banks are offering
Mm-hmm.
out here in Africa is on the high side. And we give a very good rate, less than
Okay.
10%.
Okay.
So I think that's an opportunity they can tap into.
Okay. We'll go into the rates and
Yeah,
then
the details
yes,
of that. Yes,
exactly.
sure.
But let's come from maybe there is a university that is trying to put up a research lab.
Mhm.
I mean, a higher power research lab,
That's right.
which has a lot of modern equipment
Mhm.
to augment research and everything in the institutions. If we want to break it down, how do you come in to support such an institution?
Thank you very much for this question. Okay, let's say, like you rightly put it, if an institution wants to put up such a project,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, we need to know the budget of that project,
Okay.
right? And then the content, how much that content will cost. I'm referring to the equipment that will be used to finish such a project. There's a lab.
Mm-hmm.
Then based on that, we will, sit down with them and then we'll structure how this funding is going to be done.
Okay.
First of all, the institution must buy the equipment from us in the States.
Okay.
Because that qualifies to get a working capital or the finance aspect of it.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
that is how we structure it.
Okay. So if the cost for the lab is, let's say, $10,000, we should know the amount that goes into the fiscal project
Yes.
and also the furnishing.
absolutely.
And so the institution must buy all the equipment for the furnishing from you
From
to
us,
qualify for
the extra capital for the project, completion or something
Oh.
like that. Yes.
That sounds very good.
Absolutely.
So what is the process? How can
Well,
an institution get into?
To start a process, we normally work with such institutions through their local banks.
Banks, okay.
Because the banks know the institution
Better
than we do.
Okay.
All right. So we first of all urge the institution to talk to their bankers first that there's a funding agency out there who's ready to support their project.
Okay.
We do 100% financing. It's not a
Okay.
matter of you coming out with, let's say,
30% and
and
you
we do
add
70. No, we
70.
do
Okay.
100% financing.
From scratch.
Yes.
All right.
So in that sense, the bank wouldn't have any issue of tap into their treasury or something like that.
Okay.
All right. So what we basically need from the bank is to issue a guarantee that when we give this, let's say institution A,
Mm-hmm.
this funding for their project,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the tenor, we'll come to the institution and take our money,
Mhm.
and which we call bullet repayment.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, if the bank agrees to give you a guarantee of, let's say, $5 million for a project,
Mm-hmm.
right? We will wait till end of the tenor, let's say
The
5 years. They will come for the principal plus the interest
from the bank.
from the bank. So
Okay.
you have a kind of a long moratorium to work and then get a repayment to us.
Okay.
So
Now
let's
let's understand which categories of projects in higher education. For example, you know that if you want to put up a research lab, research lab naturally do not bring in money or revenue to the university.
That's right.
Unlike hostels where students would go in and there'll be
Sure.
money. So which project do you support?
In fact, that aspect actually ought to be handled by the local banks because
Okay.
they are going to put these kind of questions to you, and then
Mhm.
you will find a way to answer them.
Mhm.
Because normally, I know some of the banks, before they will issue a guarantee, they will need to ask you few questions like, "What's your cash flow like? How is
Mhm.
your cash flow going to be like to pay for
The
project,
facility.
the
Okay.
facility?" So
Okay.
probably your finance team over there will have to do some cash projections for them.
Mhm.
And then also they will need a form of collateral,
Okay.
which the institution should provide to back the funding.
Okay.
So in case you default, then of course they can fall on that to offset our exposure. That kind
okay.
of stuff, yeah. So that's how it's structured. Yeah.
Okay. So it means you support any project.
Any project, yeah. So far as we can get a bank guarantee from that institution through their local bankers, we have a deal to close.
In times of default or in case of default, what happens?
In fact, because the local banks are actually going to be like play the supervisory role of that project, I'm sure if there's any lapses on the way, they'll prompt you, then
Mhm.
you will sit up and then probably put things right. Because
Okay.
they won't sit down for you to default and then they come for your property or some other sort.
Okay.
Right? So I think from time to time, they'll be visiting you. They'll be the institution will have to be updating them. What are some
Mhm.
of their challenges, But aside that, if we have a standard tenure, let's say 5 years, or let's say 3 years for the project. And then let's say you are facing some challenges. With us, we have about 6 months to 3 years to notify us to do the extension.
Okay.
So that there won't be that issue of having legal issues.
At the end of the 5 years.
Absolutely. So I mean, we really thought of this very deeply.
Yeah, it sounds so interesting because
right.
I mean, as I said earlier, you go through some of our university campuses, and a project has been abandoned for a number of years.
That's right.
Because the government is not giving up money
sure.
to complete it.
Sure.
But I'm still much particular about putting up administration block, putting up let's say the road, the major road to the university.
That's right.
Has
the
a lot
network.
of potholes. Do you still look at those things?
Yeah, I mean,
if they want to beautify the university, do you still support in that regard?
Sure, we do, because that's an aspect I really thought about. That you see, we know universities in Africa usually have bad roads, because if you even drive around, you can see yourself.
Sure.
So we can come in by supplying the university with construction equipment that could be used to maintain their roads regularly.
Okay.
So if you have maybe issues with your road network, or maybe potholes here and there, you don't have to fall on government to, do that for you, because you have the equipment on site. So each time there's any problem, you dispatch your people to, go and then have it fixed.
Wow, it sounds interesting.
And then
and great.
In addition, when we say equipment, we don't really mean only excavators or road. Equipment that have supply. We can also do like buses for the universities. We can supply them buses for their, tourism or for study tours and others. Yeah. And then we can also look at supplying vehicles to the professors on campus and the lecturers, as well, without paying a penny. So till 2 or 3 years, then we come for our money. Okay. But that program should be like a scheme.
Okay, for the university.
For the university.
All right.
Right. So the banks will have to come in that way. So they'll sign a scheme with the bank, and then we will supply the vehicles. And then at the end of 3 years, the banks themselves will structure how those repayments will be done, like how auto loans are done in some jurisdiction.
Okay. And you don't pay any money
upfront? You don't pay any money upfront.
Okay.
We are the agency that will do the funding for the supply of the vehicles, and then we give you money to clear from the port as well. Oh. So it's a complete package we give.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. In Africa, we have both public and private institutions.
That's right.
Do you cater for all, or you?
We cater for all. We cater for. In fact, I haven't been able to probably give that categorization of
the things you do.
Yeah. In fact, for government projects, that is, we do from $50 million and beyond.
Okay.
For government projects. So in that sense, probably that country's Minister of Finance will have to give us a sort of comfort letter.
Okay.
Right.
So white paper or something?
Kind of, just to assure us that when we give University of, let's say, Cape Coast, this amount for their project, at the end of the tenure will fall on them to have our money.
Okay.
Because we know it's a government institution, that kind of stuff, yeah.
Okay. But for the private ones?
For the private ones, then of course, we'll still resort to they talking to their local banks to issue a guarantee on their behalf, and then we do the funding. And normally, we do accept unconfirmed letters of credit. Okay. Yes. So when I mean unconfirmed letters of credit, it means that confirmation without cash back. And then we have the confirmed. Some banks will prefer they have a cash back, as the university should put some kind of money, on behalf of the the funding that we're going to do. Yeah, but it depends, how well they are convinced with the institution's financial standing.
Okay. Yes. So do you look at the credibility of the institutions?
It's very, very important.
It's very, very things they've been able to do.
Very, very, very important. But in fact, most of these due diligence
will be done by
based
the banks.
On the local banks.
Okay.
Because we see ourselves as a foreign institution, so we work. We liaise through the local banks to actually give us the credit, image of that institution applying for the facility.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you raise your funding as a foreign institution?
In fact, with us, our partners in the U.S. actually manage the Saudi fund in the U.S. Our president is a Jew and is a Republican.
Oh, okay.
So, you know that jurisdiction. I mean, per our profile, you can see how, our operations are actually carried out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm interested as an institution,
Yes.
The only process is that I must make sure that my local bank is
Yes.
aware.
Aware.
We apply through you.
Yes.
And then from there, how many days, weeks, months does the process take?
Yeah, sure. In fact, to kickstart the process, there's a form that you need to fill.
Okay.
So that we have your profile, right? On the form, we have the name of institution, the amount you are applying for, and the bank that is going to issue the guarantee on your behalf, and then probably head of institution that is going to be in charge of that, and then probably you have your email address and then contact address.
Okay.
And then based on that, we'll request for the term sheet for you, which you're going to use to discuss a transaction with your local bank, because that's what they also need to also ascertain that you have already, funds available to,
All right. So do you work with every bank, or you have
yes,
specific banks?
In fact, we work with every bank.
Okay.
But with the current issue of local banks in Ghana for now, there are certain amounts that we advise. Probably you talk to some foreign banks like this. Most of all these Nigerian banks.
Okay.
We do business with them. And then Ghana Commercial Bank, in fact, is as good as gold per our rating.
Okay.
Right, because they are in good standing. And then we do with Stanbic, Barclays, EcoBank, Standard Chartered Bank, and then probably some of the local banks, as I said.
Okay.
Per their financial standing now.
Okay,
because most of them have not met the BOG 100 million.
Exactly. Okay,
yeah,
but on a continent, we have the Pan-African Bank that is
EcoBank. Sure. We do work with them. We don't have any problem with them here. And most of these blue chip banks.
Okay.
Sometimes if you are able to strike a good deal with them and they agree to do the guarantee, probably the rate that we even require probably might go down
less,
because their financial standing is good.
Okay. We'll be talking about the
I think that's an aspect quickly.
Yes, but we'll go for a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at the interest rate.
All right.
Viewers, this is AAU Talks here on AAU TV. We are discussing alternative funding sources or avenues for African higher education, and I believe that you are enjoying the show. Stay tuned. We'll go for a short break. We'll be back.
Welcome. Sannestående bandet versus Welkom. Välkommen. 欢迎您.
Bienvenue.
Bienvenidos.
Benvenuto.
Karibu.
Willkommen.
Sono da Zua. Wamkelekile.
Ndepeni tunakutambirai.
My name is Karena. I'm from the States, from Pennsylvania, and I'm here doing my master's in sports science. I'm working with the sports programs in Kaimundi. My thesis is based off of that. Outside of campus life, I spend a lot of time playing sports, but the connections I've made through my teammates have been very nice, and we spend a lot of time going hiking, and Stellenbosch and Cape Town are beautiful. There's a lot to do. And the wine farms are unique for me because I've never seen places so fancy like that before.
Well, I really like the vibe here in Stellenbosch and the social life
and all the sport and societies.
Yeah, I love Stellenbosch because the town is so beautiful and there's a lot of nice people here.
I love Stellenbosch because the landscape, the surroundings, the mountains, the weather.
Stellenbosch University is a very diverse campus with different people from various parts of the world.
I like Stellenbosch because I love surfing and there's so many beautiful beaches here.
I love Stellenbosch University because of its scenery and different cultures.
I like Stellenbosch University because of the academic opportunities.
I love Stellenbosch University because of all the opportunities that I have here that are not in my home country in America.
Stellenbosch University International is here to help us feel comfortable and help us get connected to the community and make us feel like we belong here.
Welcome back from the break, and wherever you are watching us live across the continent, East, West, Central, South Africa, this is AU Talks on AU TV, and I still have Mr. Stephen Zelevu, who is the country director and also the West African rep for Nationwide Equipment Plus Finance, and he is telling us alternative ways that their institution or their company can support African higher education to complete our project and also put our project that will advance African higher education. So, Mr. Zelevu, before we went for the break, we were looking at the interest rate.
Yeah.
Before we even go to the interest rate, how much can a university apply for? What is the maximum money that they can apply for?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Basically, our funding ranges from, excuse me, we do a minimum of $500,000 to a maximum of $500 million.
Okay.
So that's what we can, take.
That's a huge sum of money.
That's a huge sum of money, yeah. And then our interest rates is pegged at 6.5% per annum.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
But if it's a government project that is that goes beyond the 50 million cap, then of course we could do like 3 to 4% per annum.
All right.
Yes.
So is it possible that a university may apply for multiple streams of funding? For example, we can apply for a lab, we can also apply for a bus, and then we want you to tar our road for us.
Sure. We can do that. So what I would advise you do is that you have to lump sum all these projects.
Everything, okay.
So if all come to, let's say, 50 million or 100 million, straight, and we shoot up.
Okay. Does the funding come in phases, or everything is given to you?
We do bullet payment as our repayment stage. So let's say if the bank agrees to give a guarantee to, let's say, a 50 million project.
Okay.
Probably 50 million for supply of buses, supply of construction equipment, and then some form of working capital for your project, construction of your project. We'll do that in one bulk, and then we just disburse. So number what we do is that we initially disburse the working capital to your account before the equipment arrives, because that would take about 30 to 45 days from the US per shipment to the port of Tema.
Okay. Let's talk about the icing on the cake, which has to do with the interest.
That's right.
And I'm so much interested in this one because a lot of institutions in Africa have been struggling with interest rates, with projects that they put up on campus.
Sure.
I mean, I have practical examples to back it. What happens to your interest rates?
In fact, our interest rate is fixed.
It's
fixed, yes. Okay. If we give a facility to you, let's say for 3 years, it's still 6.5.
Okay.
So that's
one beautiful thing about
on
the dollar.
No. I mean, that's how we pegged it. You know. So there's no issue about that.
Okay.
Yes, and then also our time of execution of projects is 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
So we don't waste time on projects at all. I mean, we disburse straight away once the bank approves or gives you the pre-approval letter of the guarantee. I mean, we shoot straight away.
That's interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Going back to the projects that are being implemented or run by the universities, there are those which are kind of money-making avenues, and some, I said earlier.
Yes.
Is the interest rate the same for all of them? For example, if I want to put up an administration block, would the interest be the same as putting up a hostel?
In fact, our interest rates are fixed on any kind of project you want to embark upon.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That's one beautiful thing about our package.
Sure.
Because we know the situation in Africa, you know. Because some people will say the dollar is not stable here and there, you know. So probably the only challenge you might have is when you are doing the repayments. Maybe you have to convert the CD into dollar. Okay. But I know some of these institutions, you know, you do kind of foreign. Absolutely. So that wouldn't be much of a problem to us, you know, or to the bank.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, most of the institutions are also now operating the BOT. Build, operate, and then transfer. Do you do such?
We do certain things. We do certain. All we need is a guarantee
from the
that
bank.
When we give you the funding at the end of the tenure, we're able to get our money back. That's all we need.
Okay.
So that one we don't have a problem at all, because I know some of the BOTs probably will last for like, let's say, 2 years. They might have recouped their money and pay back for the project. So that one we don't have a problem at all.
All right. Let's go to the individuals in the university.
Sure.
For example, you may have a university may not come up front and say that we want that policy for our staff.
That's right.
But if maybe a fraction or UTAG or the Lecturers Association would want to come forth that they want a policy or something with you, that is also possible.
Sure. Well, we do that. We do schemes for institutions of that nature.
Okay.
So with that, for instance, all we need is that institution will have to talk to their bankers, that maybe their group want variety of vehicles, different brands, and then you just give it a shop list of the vehicles, and then we'll raise a pro forma for you to know the pricing, because our prices are highly competitive compared to what is prevailing out there.
Okay.
And you don't put up any upfront money.
Okay. Warranty on your equipment?
For the vehicles, sure. I mean, we'll do that because we want to keep our customers, at safe,
Okay.
So, yeah.
So if an individual wants to also come to you in the university to...
We'll do a deal with you.
The same process?
The same process. Yeah, because we can't deal with you directly. So definitely you have your bankers that your salary and things pass through. So you talk to your bankers, you want to buy maybe an SUV or a saloon car from the States, we can do that. Because in fact, mind you, our minimum range is 500,000.
Okay.
So, but anything beyond 500,000, we cannot do because we need to look at the margin.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So how have the banking sector supporting your initiative so
In
far?
fact, I need to be blunt with you. The banks are not really supporting. I can say for a fact that some of them are not thinking outside the box.
Okay.
Because this is an opportunity for them to even, save their reserves for other, traditional businesses, So I think it's an opportunity they need to tap into.
Maybe they are feeling the competition also.
Of course, because they know that we are taking their business away from them. But in this modern age, competition is the key.
Sure.
Yeah, everybody's looking for a better service.
Okay.
Yeah.
So aside the higher education space, do you do other things as well? Do you support other sectors of the economy?
In fact, we do. We even do interbank lending.
Okay.
With the issue of these banks struggling to get 100 million, we can do that, provided they can also give us certain information. First of all, we need 2 years financials, and then probably some form of collateral to back the money we are going to give them.
Okay.
But the rate is relatively cheaper than what they are even offering out there.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the risk involved in everything that we do with you?
Oh, in fact, the risk, I can say, is actually will be absorbed by the local banks.
The local bank.
We kind of insulate ourselves from all these future exposures.
Okay.
So you see, so the banks will have some kind of a charge for undertaking such assignments.
Okay.
To take care of.
Okay.
Your repayment and all this stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So it means no institution can bypass the local bank and work with you directly.
No.
Not
we do directly with the local bank. In fact, that is what our US partners have cautioned us to do.
Okay.
And our financiers out there, because in fact our financiers are also a bank, so doing business with interbank is more safer than doing individuals or some institution. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any final words for African higher education institution leaders, why they must really take advantage of this opportunity?
Well, I think this is an opportunity the African higher institution must take chance of, because our governments are really, struggling these days, and then the World Bank are not even in a position to give us grants and to support our educational infrastructure. So I think this is an opportunity they should tap into.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
Welcome very much.
We'll come back to you for more business, and then also you share more light with the
fantastic
interventions that you have.
You're always welcome.
Great. All right, viewers, this has been AU Talks, and we have been hosting Mr. Stephen Zilevu, who is the country rep for Ghana and also the West African rep for Nationwide Equipment Plus Finance, and we were discussing alternative sources to funding some projects in institutions across Africa. You may be an institution right there. You may be putting up a research lab, you may be putting up a laboratory, a science lab, any facility at all. This is an opportunity that you cannot miss. We will definitely bring you more information on some of these avenues, and then we'll make sure that we advance our mandate as African higher education institutions. My name is Kwesi Sam. Thanks for watching. See you soon.